Have you ever been asked by anyone who does not go to church why you go to church? Or what do you believe in there anyway? How do you answer that? And if you haven't been asked that yet, then how would you answer that? Why do I go to church? What is it that we believe in there? The Apostles' Creed? Well, that's not exactly the sort of answer that you want to give the person who asks you. Or would you say, because Jesus is my Lord? Well, sure, but what does that mean to a person who's never stepped foot in a church? Or would you answer that, well, in spite of all evidence to the contrary, I believe that the world is in God's hands. Well, says who? So what? What is it that we believe? In today's gospel, Jesus is the one asking the question about what does it all mean anyway? What does he mean? He and his disciples have just come into the district of Caesarea Philippi, trailing miracles behind them. The feeding of the 4,000 and the 5,000, the calming of the sea, the curing of the Canaanite woman's daughter. And Jesus has not just been healing, he's also been teaching as well. Lessons about obedience to the law, and about the difference between words and deeds, and about reading the signs of the times. And every now and then he quizzes his disciples to see how much they're taking in, to see how well they have understood him. And he does not hide his displeasure at their constantly low scores. Now, in the verses just before our reading this morning, Jesus warns his disciples to be on guard against the yeast of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And eager to please, they put their literal fisherman's brain to work on this one, and together they decide that Jesus is talking about bread. And Jesus, in frustration, says, "How is it that you fail to perceive that I'm not talking about bread?" Small wonder, then, that they're a little bit anxious when Jesus gathers them around him here and asks an entirely different kind of question. Not one about anything he has said, but he asks them about who he is. Who do people say that the Son of Man is? He asks. And they're relieved because they can answer this one. Oh, well, some people say you're John the Baptist, and others rummage around in their brains to remember what people are saying about Jesus. Elijah, Jeremiah, they're all giving out their suggestions. They pull the names out of their pockets like interesting stones that they have found, and they hand them over to Jesus. There's no big risk in repeating what you've heard, after all. This is just a consultation among friends. So you can almost see the expectation on the disciples' faces as they turn over these tidbits they've heard. So which one is it, Jesus? Which one's the right one? What's the right answer? A, B, or C? Or none of the above? But Jesus does not give them his answer. What he wants are their answers. And again, you can almost see their faces as he turns the question back on them. But who do you say that I am? He asks this question of the people who are his nearest and dearest friends, the ones who have received his best, the ones who are his own. Who do you say that I am? What is it that you believe there in that church anyway? It's too bad the Bible hasn't come down to us like a musical score with all the pauses written in, or like the script of a play that tells us what's happening when nothing is being said. It would be helpful to have stage directions, something like center stage. As soon as Jesus asks the question, all the disciples look away. Some of them are studying their hands, while others are moving little piles of dirt around with their foot. Who knows how long that silence lasts before Peter breaks in with his answer. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Thank goodness for Peter. I mean, right or wrong, he's always the first one out of the gate. He's the first one to leave his fishnets and follow Jesus. He's the first one in the boat to walk on the water. Sometimes it's hard to say whether he's courageous or just reckless. But here Jesus blesses Peter, the rock upon which the church will be built and the inheritor of the keys to the kingdom of God. It sort of makes you want to have your own answer ready, doesn't it? Just in case you're given a similar opportunity to win the sweepstakes. But there's a catch. Because while Peter's answer seems to be the right one, it's not really his answer. Blessed are you, Jesus says, for flesh and blood have not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. Which is a little like saying, blessed are you for an answer that's not your own. If it was not even Peter's answer, then why does he get rewarded for it? His sudden promotion may seem odd to the other disciples as well. After all, Peter sank in the water when he tried to walk on it. And while he may have been the first with his hand in the air when a question was being asked, he did not always follow through on his bold pronouncements. He did, after all, deny his Lord 3 times. You are Peter, Jesus says, giving Simon a new name, and on this rock I will build my church. But 6 sentences later in this text, Jesus stubs his toe on that same rock. For no sooner does Peter receive his new authority than he begins to argue with Jesus about what is going to happen in Jerusalem. And Jesus says, now get behind me, Satan, in our next week's reading. You're a stumbling block in my path. What does it all mean? How can Peter be the rock with the right answer on one point and then the devil in the way on the other? All at the same time here. And if he is, then what in the world are we supposed to learn from Peter? Well, it's nothing that he is or says or does all by himself that wins him the keys to the kingdom. He's blessed because his answer is God's answer. And he is a rock because he's a chunk off the rock of ages. And it's on this relationship that the church is built. Not on any virtue of Peter's, or yours or mine for that matter. Peter is chosen not because he has the right answer. On the contrary, the right answer has occurred to him because he is chosen. Because Jesus, in his wisdom, decided to pick a bullheaded, big-hearted, fallible, stubborn rock on which to build his church. Peter may not have a flawless character. He might not have the intellectual wisdom. He might not have the spiritual depth that I would prefer in the founder of my church. But I know this. I am really glad to hear that Peter is the one in charge of heaven's gates. Someone like him might understand someone like me. Someone who finds answers hard to come by sometimes. Someone who finds it easier and safer to repeat other people's answers because I've not thought long enough about my own, or because my own don't sound good enough, or because I don't trust God to help me with them. Peter might understand someone who goes ahead and says things and then regrets having said them. Or someone who makes brave promises like, even if I must die with you, I will not deny you, and then lose heart and deny not once but 3 times. If Peter is the rock upon which the church is built, then all of us have hope. Because Peter's one of us. Because he remains God's chosen rock, whether he's acting like a cornerstone or like a stumbling block. And because he shows us that blessedness is less about perfection and more about willingness. That what counts is to take a risk. Risk our own answers. Go ahead and try. Get up one more time when we fall. So the next time you bump into someone who asks you what you believe, and all of a sudden you realize that your answer matters a lot, go ahead and give it a try. You might say something stupid, but then again, you might surprise yourself and say something inspiring instead. The important thing is to try. Not only to say what you believe, but also to live what you believe. Knowing that you and I, we're Peter's kin. Whether we rise or whether we fall, whether we give the right answer or the wrong one, we all are chips off the old block. Pieces of the one true rock. The rock against which even the powers of hell and death cannot prevail.